Well, for more on this, I'm now joined by Alex Booth, Head of Research at Kepler. Alex, hi. Do you think the oil market sell-off earlier this week on the back of Omicron was premature?
Hi, I think, yeah, the bottom line is the move in oil was aligned with many of the other equity markets, the kind of a big macro sell-off. But we saw that rebound on the day within equities. We didn't see as big an impact in the sectors that you would expect to be hit by this kind of news, i.e. airlines. Oil kind of stayed down throughout the session. So the fact that we saw the rebound yesterday, I don't think was particularly surprising. Yes, the news around Omicron is still quite mixed, but as you mentioned just now, there are some positive signs coming out of research in South Africa in terms of the degree of severity of this variant.
And I know it's hard to predict, but what's your outlook for where the price will go in the first half of 2022?
So if we take the more optimistic view that Omicron won't be as severe, and it's this fine balance between the level of severity versus the level of transmissibility, and ultimately what people care about is hospitalizations, and that's what we're really looking at. If we take a more optimistic view that will kind of burn through quite quickly, then there's a lot to like going into next year. The US production growth should continue at this kind of steady pace, but that will ease off as we move into, say, Q2. But as you mentioned, there are a lot of production issues across many parts of the world. We've got recently issues within Libya, problems in Ecuador. Those are kind of relatively short term. But you've got the long-term problems that you see, say, in West Africa, where countries are struggling to increase their production in line with the OPEC plus agreement because of long-term declines just that are really coming to the fore. So unless OPEC plus can kind of rearrange the agreement to essentially catch up against those ongoing losses, that's generally very positive. At the same time, we're not really seeing any movement around the agreements or the negotiations with Iran. So whereas we've kind of webbed and waxed and waned in terms of the comeback for Iranian oil, that's likely to be deferred further into next year. So I think if we can move through this kind of the current fear around Omicron, and ultimately we'll find out in the next few weeks, really, with what's happening in the UK, as long as we can move through that, then we should be seeing a return to that kind of 80, 85 range on Brent, I think, where we were just going into the end of November.
With all those global production issues that you mentioned, what are you expecting from OPEC Plus on the 4th of January? Will they stay with the current pace of increasing production?
Well, I think whereas in the last meeting that still actually hasn't officially been closed, I don't think, is they left it open to be able to immediately come back once more data is there. As I say, I think we will go through Christmas in the UK with essentially this perfect laboratory experiment for them, whereby they will come out on the 4th of January and see just what's happened with case rates, with hospitalizations, and with deaths in a large, highly populated Western country. And that's going to be a real indicator for them in terms of making their decision. If we continue with the status quo, I think it's likely that they will continue to allow those further increases because, as we say, production issues elsewhere are just going to limit that anyway.
Thanks so much for that, Alex Booth, Head of Research at Kepler.
Thank you.